Live from Atlanta, Georgia, it's the Zach Ballinger Show, where we help you find your direction through passion and purpose. My name is Zach Ballinger. I am your host. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Two ways you can join the show. We are streaming via live YouTube. So if you have any questions, pop those questions right into the comment box. We'll make sure to get them to my guest. You guys could email me, Zach, Z-A-C-K, Zach at Zach Ballinger, and ask questions via that way. And that's a great route too. Um, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. If you're used to watching the show, we have the career library, and then we have a career coach that comes on and joins every week or two. But now we're going to also add a half hour to really answering your questions about business, entrepreneurship. For a lot of you out there, you say, hey, I'm tired of this career. I want to go on my own, do my own business. I'm curious about that. So we want to take your questions around that. And so Amanda's going to be great to join us to talk with us today. This is really your show, and we really appreciate Amanda. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So could you tell me, the audience, and me a little bit about yourself before we jump into this?
Yeah. So in particular, my career journey, I started out working in the nonprofit sector. I wanted to change the world. I thought that's how you do it. And a few years into that, my husband got this crazy idea to start a business. And I thought, no, we can't do that. I've never even thought about starting a business. But about a year later, we wrote our first business plan and we were off to the races to start that. We opened an independent coffee shop in downtown Chicago a few years after that. And that was our first business. It was a lot of fun. It was, we made it to change the world and, do some good. And then a little bit into that, we decided, or like 7 years later, we decided to sell that business. And now we're in a new business where we're working with people to better their financial futures. So a lot of twists and turns in my journey there, but all around entrepreneurship and owning businesses. And I work with a lot of business owners now.
Awesome. I'm so glad to have you and to join the show. The biggest questions that I get from people around it is people want to own their own business. I get that. Some people might be that I talk to are burnt out in their career, or some young people are excited about a new idea that they have. But a lot of people are like, Zach, I want to own my own business, but I don't know what I want to own it in. What would you tell those people that say that?
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, you can't rush clarity. Don't rush into something just because you got the idea yesterday, right? Take time, make sure. And some clues for then where to look are your own passions, what you love. As somebody who, had started from scratch, like literally in student debt, I started from less than scratch to get going. There was a lot of bumps, a lot of not even bumps, like huge roadblocks, right, to get around. Many times I felt like giving up, but because I had that sense of this is what I'm kind of called to. It's part of my destiny. I need to start this business, and it aligns with my passions and things I care about. That kept me going, right? So it was kind of like I had that clarity of insight, and it was aligned with what I felt like my life was supposed to be about. And that's, I think, really the number one thing that has led to my success and sticking with it for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. You can't just go into business, go into business. You have to have an idea or a service that can help someone. If you think about it like this, I love what you said. You said you went from the nonprofit organization, and that was the only way you thought you could help people. Explain, what you mean by, because I think there's misnomer out there that, well, if you're a business owner, you're evil, or you can't do that, and gain money and all that kind of stuff. What allowed you to have that transition in your mind?
Yeah, there was this one very clear moment. I was a grant writer for a nonprofit. So I got money from people who had resources, right, and gave it to people without resources. And we told them, here's what you have to do with it. And the first time I got to go to a site visit to see the money in action in a neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, I realized standing there in this big room watching this program that we had funded happen that I wanted to be with the people doing the program, and they were my people, not the people that I came with, right, that had given the money to do things. And when I looked at that neighborhood and really what was transforming that neighborhood, it was the businesses that are there day in, day out, providing jobs, being a place for people to go to, giving back to their schools in ways that they, and other nonprofits in their neighborhood that they know the neighborhood really needs. And that kind of grassroots is really like how neighborhoods and communities transform. And business owners are often the people that have their finger on the pulse of that neighborhood the best, and can like know really what's going on and what's needed, not some outside, grantor that's saying you have to do this program in this way to get our money kind of thing. And then if you can take that and add, well, and anything we're taking from outside the community, let's make sure that it's helping those communities too, and not enslaving them to help us make our community better, but, we're doing what we call ethical economics, right? Fair trade, that kind of thing. Then that's a win-win for their community and for ours. So that's kind of the perspective that I came to. And it really aligns with who I am. I grew up in a small town, that kind of community self-improvement grassroots that really is like core to like how I've always been, right? And so that made a lot more sense for me.
Awesome answer. It's a great, like you said, it's all about community building, and if you enjoy that type of stuff, then you can definitely hop into business and do it. It's a noble calling for sure. Plus, you're serving your employees as well that report to you. So you're doing everything there. Some of the questions also around with what are the best ways to market your business? And I guess that depends obviously what business you're in, but what are some of the tips out there to spread your business? Or, I know there's word of mouth, but what other ways do you recommend?
Yeah, I've always been a really big believer in, this might not come as a surprise, but in content marketing, telling stories, sharing thoughts and ideas. We started our first blog the day I left my cubicle in that nonprofit to start the business. And, that was back in 2009. That was when people blogged. I guess some people do now, but there are so many other ways to do content marketing now with podcasts and YouTube. And really, the way that I looked at it was there were so many people that wanted to be part of the journey. Not everyone wants to start a business. Not everyone wants to be a business owner, but they admire and want to feel like they're part of that journey. And so I just started with telling the story, letting people know, hey, we incorporated today. Hey, we visited a coffee roaster today, and we know what kind of coffee we're going to serve. And that helps people come along for the journey with us. And like, they were raving fans. They wanted to buy things when we were ready to sell them because they felt included. And again, community building, right? Content does a really good job of that. And then what's fun is that also gives them something that they can then share to get that word of mouth going. It's not just, hey, you got to check out this coffee shop. It's, hey, there's this coffee shop, but they also have this really great blog that, has this information I think you'll really like, or, this story reminded me of you. And it gives them the content to actually help with that word of mouth too.
Awesome. And, you look at from your business, from what you do, previous and to what you do now, and you worked with a lot of businesses. What are some of I think sometimes people don't realize this great calling has a great sacrifice. And talk about some of the difficulties behind owning your own business and some of the challenges that you've even ran into.
Yeah, it's definitely very lonely, because even if you're trying to build community, get people engaged, you're the one that cares the most about what you're doing. And that can feel lonely. Like, no one cares about this as much as I do, that kind of thing. And that I always talk to people about, like, well, who can then be on your team to at least care about it almost as much as you do, right? And help feed into that. Thankfully, I've been on this journey with my husband, and there were times he stayed in his cubicle longer than I did, where he would come home after a day of work and I'd just be in tears, wanting to give up. Like, this is never going to work. It's too hard. I have no clue how to get through the latest roadblock. And we would just talk about it. And he would remind me of the purpose and the calling. He'd often, through that conversation, we'd find a different strategy to try. So super helpful in some way to build a team that way. But then also a couple years after we opened, that relationship was the most strained. It was just a year later. So we had finished the first year of business, and we had thrown everything into the business, and we were on the brink of divorce. And it was then that we had to learn that we had to be something outside of our business too. We had to, I started taking one morning off per week just to have a couple hours of solitude by myself to get back in touch with who is Amanda, right? And he started doing that one afternoon per week, right? Where he got to spend that time. And then we started having one time per week where we'd hang out, just the two of us, no business. We can't talk about business. And that was really crucial for helping us feel like we are not the business. We are individuals. We can have lives outside the business. And that started a whole journey toward then figuring out, well, then how do we make the business work for us? And that was definitely a big question and took a whole journey. And then, that's nothing to say of all of the staff problems and landlord issues and vendor problems and, all the things that happen and, in the midst of all of that. But those are probably the two biggest things, is all the times when something like that would cause me to want to give up, and how having a team helped me get back into it. And then the time when I wanted to give up because it had become all about the business and there wasn't anything outside. And that helped me get through all those other roadblocks, right? The vendor changes and landlord issues and staffing problems.
Thank you so much for opening up and sharing your own personal story. It's great to see, vulnerability in people and challenges that happen. And so thank you just for being open and honest about that. My dad has been in the restaurant industry for about 44 years now. And just to seeing some of the hours, like you said, you never really, even when he got home, he never really put it away. It was always thinking about it, or calls from employees. And so sometimes you have to realize it's not always as glamorous as it seems. It definitely is more of a calling, if you will.
Yep.
So the next question comes to you. I have a lot of high school students inquire about this. They say, well, Zach, do I have to go to college and get my 4-year degree? Because, the parents are saying, hey, we want you to go to college and get your 4-year degree. And then some of the high school seniors say, well, I want to own my own business. I've got my idea ready. Do I have to really go to college? How would you advise someone like that, Amanda?
Yeah, it's so individual and unique, but some of the questions that I would ask, I had a high school teacher that told me that really your first 4 years of college are all about learning how to learn. And then you can go learn whatever you want to learn. And that's really, when I went to college, that's how I approached it, was this is just my 4 years of really learning how to learn. And then I'm going to figure out my passion and, what I really want to do after that. And I went to a liberal arts school. I had no clue what my passion was. It was a really crucial time for me to really figure that out. But if I try to put myself in the shoes of someone that's like, I know exactly what my passion is, I'm going to do this, I'd encourage them to explore ways. Could you do it and go to college at the same time? Could you maybe do it and do part-time college? Could you do it and maybe start at a community college for a couple years? Give yourself some space to see if it actually works. No harm in just getting an associate's, right? If the business does really well, you can always go back and get a bachelor's. But mostly keep your options open, right? Maybe start taking a class or two and start the business, or maybe do all full-time study and do the business on the side. You'll still have breaks in summers, right, that you can pursue that. And I found it really helpful when I was starting to start small, to bootstrap, to do, one one sale of coffee beans right before, and we did that for a long time before we actually had a full-fledged coffee shop. How could you do that in the meantime? Those could be some interesting creative ways to figure out your unique path and what it looks like.
Love that advice because, that's kind of my thinking too, is like, why not do it on the side? There's a lot of Americans out there, adults and professionals out there that have side hustles or side
Mhm.
businesses, and they let it grow up to a certain point where they know, okay, well, when my income's starting to get to a certain point, I can go ahead and leave my full-time job, start, full time on this business adventure. Same for, a high school senior out there. Why not go ahead and get into the college, learn that? You got a fallback plan in case your business doesn't work out. You can always
Yep.
open more up and you get those connections, that more knowledge. So,
Mhm.
exactly. I love that advice. For somebody out there that's, an entrepreneur that is struggling out there, what advice can you give them? Like coronavirus has been real tough on many different businesses. Is there a way, that you have or advice that you have that can keep them along their journey?
Yeah, there's actually a really awesome guy named Mike Michalowicz, which is really hard to spell, don't even try. But he has a website that he created called recessionresponse.com that has a whole bunch of really great resources for business owners and entrepreneurs right now with how to survive the pandemic. He started it almost a year ago when things were going. One of my favorite things that he has there, I'll share with you. So I want to give credit to where I heard this. And tell you where you can find out more things like this. So he is actively working with businesses, and what he's found really helpful for them is, so let's use the restaurant example, like your dad, right? If you can't open your restaurant, or you're not selling as much, to take a step back, like, well, then the next thing is, it's all about the food. Let's just get the food to people, do delivery, make sure we're ramping up the full delivery. Then you take a step back from that. It's the like raw ingredients. Maybe we give people the bottle of wine, right? Or like we sell them that bottle of wine or the bag of potatoes that we would have used, or, we could sell some of those ingredients to our neighbor, our neighborhood that needs it or whatever. Take a step back from that. It's actually the preparing of the food. Maybe you start online cooking classes, right? And people then learn how to make the specialty of a restaurant in their own homes all around the world, right? And that's maybe some content marketing, but you're also charging for it. And there's all kinds of fun things you can do, but it's kind of that step back method. So you could do that with, if you were making clothes, right? Well, now you've got the fabric, right? What else could you do with the fabric? Make masks, make, PPE, or, sell just the fabric, or, teach people how to sew. You can do that with any business. And I've found that has been really helpful for a lot of people right now, is to like look at the same business, but in different models of how then you make money.
Pivot. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Love that. And thank you for sharing. Um, how do people, let's say they're interested, because you have podcasts too, correct? And
Yep.
can you tell us a little bit about that? Somebody might be out there listening that might be interested in that. Fill us in
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah. So our YouTube channel is Grandma's Wealth Wisdom, or the Neelys Present Grandma's Wealth Wisdom. We got a lot of great videos there, or you can find Grandma's Wealth Wisdom, the podcast, on wherever you listen to podcasts. But the YouTube has like more things than just what's on the podcast. And we share a lot about how to create a smart, stable financial future, how to make sure you've got, the cushion and the foundation that you need to really live a successful financial life and to go on your journey toward financial independence. So it's a little different. Most people are talking about what stock should you buy? What's the latest ETF? How to max out your 401k. We're a little different. We're more in the basic, but like advanced basics. It's not just, save 10% of all you earn in a savings account. It's like, no, let's think about like, well, how could you get a better return than a savings account? Should it be 10% or should it be 5% or 20%? Like those are the kinds of questions we're asking and exploring in our content.
Awesome. And do you have social media or any place people can follow you, but or is it just strictly the YouTube channel?
No, absolutely. Facebook, Insta, Twitter, LinkedIn. We're everywhere.
Awesome. So we'll make sure to link into this, your website, to make sure if people are interested that they can definitely go into the comment section and subscribe to the podcast.
Perfect.
We really appreciate you coming on and sharing. We know you're really busy. This is one of the first episodes of this show, and a lot of people have asked for small business half hours where they can come in and ask questions, as well as just talking around this whole concept of that people can be their own business owners. So I really do appreciate you coming on the show. We know you're very busy in your current passion and your current entrepreneurism as you're doing that. So thank you, Amanda. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great day.